Hello and welcome to the show. For today's Hot Wheels Showdown, we have got perhaps one of the most highly requested cars, and that is the Ford Crown Vic. Going to be honest, not expecting great things from this. I seem to remember from a previous build series, along one of the early series I did on Horizon, I don't think it gets to the top of S1 class. I might be wrong, but yeah, I think we might struggle, potentially, with this car. Nevertheless, I'm going to give it a try. Let's start with the tyres, shall we? We will get the car onto the Hot Wheels race compound tyre. We will get as nice, that's not too bad front tyres, actually. 275s for the front. Are we, okay, so same size tyres at the rear. It's kind of a little bit less. I was hoping for bigger tyres, especially, I can get away with sort of 275s on a small light car, that's fine. When you've got a big heavy vehicle like the Crown Vic, I would have liked to have had some wider tyres. As much like the bull bars, of course, we need the Forza Aero for that all-important downforce. Or we can get the police lights, and they're actually lighter. I was kind of expecting them to add weight and not really want them, but no, apparently it saves us £7 by adding police lights. So yes, we will have those. Very, very important things. Let's go through the handling stuff. Equally going to be very, very important. We want good brakes. We want as good a suspension as we can get. Anything that is going to help get this car around the corner, get £4,000 worth of Ford to a change direction. It's not going to end up at £4,000, I'm hoping, but it shaves out not as much weight as ideally I would like. In the grand scheme of things, I guess it's not too heavy, but for this series, £3,000, £3,300 is quite a lot of weight to be taking around the Hot Wheels circuit. Engine, we're going to have to swap out the car's standard engine, and only option is the 5.8 litre V8. It's the Shelby GT500 engine. We're going to need it. We're going to most definitely be needing that engine. We're not allowed to change the driveline, sorry. We can turbocharge the engine if we so wish. It is slightly heavier going for twin turbos than supercharger. I tell you what, actually, we're going to come back to that because I don't know which gets the more power. I imagine the turbos slightly, but I don't know. So yeah, we will come back and have a look at that. PI is actually doing a little bit better than I was expecting it to. In some ways, we're halfway through S1 class. Admittedly, we've got 600 horsepower. This engine should be good for over 1,000. And it's only not, well, it's not really creeping up very much as we add this stuff on. It tells you a lot about this this vehicle. If adding the power parts makes very little difference to the PI, we know it's going to be a horrible, horrible mess through the corners. I mean, power to weight ratio actually isn't great on this vehicle, full stop. With the supercharger up to 920 something, I think this engine is good for 1,000 horsepower. I think we're going to have to swap to the turbos, unfortunately. As much of a shame as it is to get rid, much of a shame as it is to get rid of the supercharger on this engine, it's the, best way to get power out of the car. 1,041. It's much, much horsepower in this vehicle, but there is a lot of car to try and move around with all of that power. I think the only thing we have left now is we can jump gearbox. We might as well. We've got the PI to do it. And similar story with things like clutch and driveline. We have got plenty of PI to work with, and that, I think, is everything on the Ford ready to be going. Now, the big problem that I foresee, while 1,041 horsepower, near enough 900 torques, are big, big numbers. We've seen plenty of cars with getting on for this level of performance. Take the Porsche 914 that went relatively recently. That had pretty much the same level of horsepower, not quite as much torque. That car weighed about 2,000 pounds. It's 1,500 pounds lighter than this with very, very similar power outputs. Now, power to weight ratio wise, the Crown Vic is going to really struggle. I mean, the tyres aren't too bad size wise, so corner grip might be okay, but I think we're going to struggle in some places around the lap. A fair bit, actually, with this car. You never know. I could be completely wrong. Maybe it'll turn out to be surprisingly fast. I think we're actually, as strange as it is to say with all this power, we might be lacking in the acceleration department. So, we're off to the skyscraper takeoff circuit with the Crown Vic, where I will have 5 laps to try and go as fast as possible. Now, expectation-wise, we can kind of forget challenging the Commodore. A 132 is going to be well outside the realms of the Crown Vic. Honestly, I'm looking at about a 35. If we can get into the 35s, kind of around the Bentley Supersport, the Jeep Cherokee, maybe even the Lotus 311, that sort of area, the highish 35s, potentially where the Crown Vic is going to end up. It's going to come down to, well, how good is it actually going to be through the corners? If we can hold more quarter speed than I'm expecting, then we might not be too bad off, because it's not likely to be earth-shatteringly fast accelerating, but it does still have 1,000 horsepower, let's not forget that, and might still be able to make the most of that. I mean, things like the Bentley and the Jeep and so on had 800 horsepower, or 700 horsepower and so on, and weighed more or as much. Oh, don't have the rear end grip for that. So yeah, similar kind of weight to this car with less horsepower, so it potentially, sort of statistically wise, might be able to fight with them, although they did have much bigger tyres, were all-wheel drive as well. Not that all-wheel drive is a huge help around this circuit. Of all the circuits I've done in various series, all-wheel drive is perhaps the least effective around here, because while this particular corner that we are coming up to here is a relatively low-speed acceleration zone, it's one of very, very few. Most of this is medium and high speed corners, and all-wheel drive doesn't really give you an advantage there. The car's not really having problems getting to full throttle out of these turns, so yeah, of all the series we've ever done, I think all-wheel drive is least effective around here. That's going to be a really big bounce. Oh, that's an interesting way off. That's a really big... Don't quite know what we bounced off to just clear the track so cleanly that time around. Well done, Crown Vic. It might be the most impressively clean launch off of the track I think we've ever seen. Not massively helpful in terms of a good lap time, but there we go. Well, we've got to be careful at the jump. It's kind of a general good thing to be careful with whatever car you're using. Most vehicles can and have been caught out at some point across that jump. The gear ratios in this car, nice and long, will help with this manic wheel spin. It's not too bad, actually. It's not too bad. Having that bit more weight can help with the oversteer, with the wheel spin, a little bit more stability. Not necessarily a bad thing in some of these cars. And okay sized tyres at the back means that yeah, the on-power wheel spin and on-power oversteer and so on isn't terrible. I mean, the car is naturally quite oversteery, which is perhaps not helping too much, although I've turned into that corner a little bit too tight. Not going to be the greatest lap of all time. Please slow down. Thank you, Ford. Our acceleration, one of the areas that I was concerned for this vehicle, is again just about okay. I think it's 165 miles an hour going into the crossover point, which is kind of average, really. And average straight line speed with, well, maybe average cornering is probably not going to be what you need to get to the top of the leaderboard, or even set a half decent time. That was my fault. I wiggled the car, not intentionally, but slightly mispositioned it as we hit the jump. Well, that's 2 times we've gone soaring off into the water. Yeah, if you're not perfectly straight when you hit that, when you leave the takeoff area, you're going to have trouble when it comes to the landing zone, and I wasn't trying to line the car up with where I wanted it to land on the landing zone, and it didn't quite go according to plan. So first couple of laps are a little bit of a write-off for the Crown Vic. Thankfully, we've got a few more to go. I'm not horrendously disliking this car. Oh, be really careful with trying to get on that power around turn 3. The back end does want to let go. It's a very, very gradual let go, which is easier to drive with. It's not snappy, this car. It's not a vehicle that you drive very much on a knife edge. If you overstep that mark a little bit too much, you get this very gradual and slow oversteery moment that is nice and easy to control. unlike some crazy cars that have got around this course, yeah, things are going slightly wrong with this. It isn't the most uncontrollable uncontrollable beast, apart from on the jump it seems, but anything can snap around there. Yeah, we're not having too many problems, even out of the tighter sections. I'm pretty much getting to full throttle with minimal in the way of wheel spin. I'm going to run a little bit too high. Ran it in a bit too far through that particular corner. Now, can we please just get across this jump cleanly this time around? Looks like we might be able to do that. Oh, it's a lovely boost of the second pad up towards 209 miles an hour. It's 197 held around the loop. That's actually pretty good going. Sometimes the big heavy cars, even with a lot of power, can have issues lugging themselves around the loop, but that was a pretty good run. It's into the 35s, kind of where I was hoping to put the car. Big slide through turn 1. Not what we wanted. Oh, and now got a little carried away with the power out of turn 2. That's not great. Yeah, I'm actually quite impressed with that straight line speed. We have seen some of the heavier cars, even with much power, not be able to maintain that momentum around the loop. That was close to scraping into the wall. We got away with all of that. We don't have too many issues either across the bump down there that has caught out a few vehicles. We scraped the wall that time. Just the faintest of kisses on the wall there. It didn't even dirty the lap, but oh, I'm pushing my luck through these corners at the moment. It's again another 165 miles an hour. We've seen 180 perhaps of the Ferrari 166 down there. We've certainly seen well into the 170s from some other cars. It's going to be a average straight line speed sort of car, perhaps slightly below average in terms of handling. Not going to be challenging the 33s around here, that much is for sure. Launches once more towards this second boost pad. It gets quite unhappy on the landing. Even on the landing where we got a big old boost, it just didn't feel comfortable down there. Still without a boost, it's holding good speed around the loop as well, which is nice to see. Oh, that's a big stop. That's a very big stop, and we're not going to make it into that corner. It was I was a little early the previous lap, so I thought I'll be braver as I was going slower as well, and it didn't work. Now, seeing as that will compromise our final lap, I will give the car a fair chance. Now, it's also going to dirty our final lap. I can't do much about that one particularly. We will, back it up, give it a fair run through the final corner and see if we can go faster. If this lap is looking better, and of course we will frame by frame it to get the lap time, as it won't appear up on screen. Here we go then. This is the kind of all-important lap for the Crown Vic. Patience through turn 3. We can't carry the giddy heights of 120 plus that we were doing in the Evo 9, but it's not too terrible from this car. Again, likewise, through turn 4. Preferring to leave it in 4th gear rather than downshifting into 3rd. Don't really want to excite the car. Don't really need to get it unnecessarily oversteery. Perhaps the small bit of power we lose from being a little lower down in the rev range than ideal is more than made up for, I think, in just having the car composed through that section up towards the crossover point. 167 miles an hour, a fraction better this time around. Now, don't lose the back end on acceleration. We haven't been doing so far. We've certainly seen cars spin the wheels a lot more coming out of there than the Crown Vic. This is perhaps the corner where we are struggling a little bit, although lots of cars struggle. It's a horrible tightening radius turn, easy to get a lot of understeer mid-turn there. Up towards our boosting jump we go with the Crown Vic. Will it get settled? It does get settled, but it's still quite awkward. Still quite awkward across the jumps there, still holding it above 190. We dive to the inside for the run towards the final corner. Had a little bit of a lock-up on the way in. Have still got the car stopped. We had to slither and slither and slither and slither, put the power down. It might have been a couple of tenths quicker. I think it might have been a 35.7 to finish that. It is, yeah. It is kind of around where I expected it. It's around the 35s. Could have been a lot worse. Could have been a lot worse for the Ford. as I said during the run, it's very much average straight line speed, slightly sub-average handling. Not terrible, not undrivable, not a horrendously leery car. Let's not forget, it's not at the top of S1 class either. It's not at the top of S1 class. Does a good job, does a better job than perhaps I feared of maintaining its speed around the loop. Decent brakes as well, I've got to say, for such a big heavy car, for doing some fairly high speeds. Brakes are very good at getting it slowed down. The lap time, as I said, I will check frame by frame exactly what that previous lap was. I think it went a couple of tenths up faster. It is going to be around the Lotus 311, Jeep Cherokee, Bentley Super Sports, HMS Regalia, that kind of area. That kind of area on the table. It's going to be around the 35, 36, 37th place on the leaderboard. For once, I kind of guessed at the time and was pretty bloody accurate. I'm getting better. I'm getting better with these vehicles. It was an interesting build, an interesting challenge to drive. Actually, it wasn't too bad, being a relatively calm vehicle. Once you overstep that mark slightly, it's not too bad to get everything back under control. But that is going to be it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.